My family cut me off before Thanksgiving, until my sister's husband realized I was his boss, and what came out at that dinner exposed years of lies they'd been telling about me. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how my family excluded me for years because they thought I was a failure. How one Thanksgiving dinner shattered that illusion, and how the truth that emerged destroyed the perfect image they'd built while pushing me away. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. My parents, Richard and Susan Carter, were both successful. Dad owned a chain of car dealerships. Mom was a real estate agent. Upper middle class life. Nice house in Myers Park. I had one younger sister, Emily. She was 29, married to a guy named Jason Harper. They had 2 kids. The perfect family my parents always bragged about. Then there was me, the black sheep. I dropped out of college after 2 years. UNC Chapel Hill. Business major. It wasn't for me. I'd wanted to work with my hands, build things, create. My parents had been devastated. "You're throwing your life away," my dad had said when I'd told them I was leaving school. "I'm not throwing it away. I'm just choosing a different path," I'd replied. "A path to what? Manual labor? Poverty?" my mom had challenged. "To something I actually care about," I'd stated. They'd never forgiven me for it. I'd started working construction, then carpentry. Then I'd specialized in custom furniture, high-end pieces, tables, cabinets, built-ins for luxury homes. By 2018, at age 26, I'd started my own company, Carter Custom Woodworks. I'd been good at it, really good. My work had been featured in design magazines. I'd gotten contracts with interior designers, architects, wealthy clients who wanted unique handcrafted pieces. By 2020, I'd expanded, hired a team, opened a showroom, started taking on commercial projects. By 2024, my company had 40 employees, revenue of $8.5 million annually. I personally made around $600,000 a year. But my family didn't know any of this. They'd never asked about my work beyond dismissive questions. "Still doing the furniture thing?" my dad would ask occasionally. "Yeah, still doing it," I'd reply, not elaborating. They'd assumed I was struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet, and I'd let them assume it, because their dismissal had hurt, and I'd wanted to see how long they'd keep treating me like a disappointment without ever actually checking in. For years, family gatherings had been painful. My parents would brag about Emily, about Jason's career. He was a project manager at some tech company, about their grandkids, about Emily's volunteer work. Then they'd turn to me. "Daniel's still doing carpentry. It's honest work," my mom would say to guests, her tone pitying. I'd stopped going to most family events. The condescension was exhausting. But I'd always gone to Thanksgiving. It was tradition, even if it was uncomfortable. Until 2024. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I'd gotten a text from Emily. "Hey, Mom and Dad asked me to tell you something. They're keeping Thanksgiving small this year, just immediate family. They don't want you to come. I'm sorry." I'd stared at the text, read it 3 times. I'd called Emily immediately. "What do you mean they don't want me to come? I'm immediate family," I'd said. "I know, but they said with Jason's promotion and everything going well for us, they want to have a celebration dinner. Just people who are doing well. They think having you there would bring down the mood," Emily had explained, her voice apologetic. "Bring down the mood? Because I'm a carpenter?" I'd questioned. "They think you're struggling. They don't want to make you feel bad by talking about Jason's success. They think it would be awkward," Emily had said. "So instead they're just uninviting me," I'd stated flatly. I tried to talk them out of it, but Dad was insistent. "He said you'd understand," Emily had revealed. "I understand perfectly," I'd replied and hung up. I'd been angry, hurt, but not surprised. This was who they were. I decided to spend Thanksgiving with friends instead. Moved on. Then, 2 days before Thanksgiving, I'd gotten a call from an unknown number. "Is this Daniel Carter, owner of Carter Custom Woodworks?" a man's voice had asked. "Yes, this is Daniel," I'd confirmed. "This is Jason Harper. I think you might be my brother-in-law," the voice had said, sounding shaken. Jason, Emily's husband. "Yeah, I am. What's going on?" I'd asked, confused. "I need to talk to you, in person. Can we meet?" Today? Jason had requested urgently. Why? What's this about? I'd questioned. Please, just meet me. Coffee, 1 hour. It's important, Jason had pressed. I'd agreed. Met him at a Starbucks near South Park. Jason had looked stressed when I'd arrived. Pale, nervous. What's going on? I'd asked as we sat down. I just found out something. About you. About your company. And I need to understand if it's true, Jason had said. Found out what? I'd pressed. Are you the Daniel Carter who owns Carter Custom Woodworks? Jason had asked directly. Yes, I've owned it for 6 years. Why? I'd confirmed. Jason had put his head in his hands. Oh my God. Jason, what's going on? I'd demanded. I just accepted a job 2 weeks ago. Project manager at Carter Custom Woodworks. I start Monday, after Thanksgiving, Jason had revealed. I'd frozen. You're my new project manager? Apparently. I went through the whole interview process, 3 rounds. They made me an offer. Great salary, $140,000. I accepted. I thought I was working for some company I'd never heard of. I didn't put it together until I saw your name on the company documents today. Daniel Carter, President and CEO, Jason had explained. You didn't know I owned a company? I'd asked. No! Emily's parents, your parents, they've always said you were struggling, that you were doing odd carpentry jobs, barely making it. We all thought you were... I'm sorry, but we thought you were kind of a failure, Jason had admitted. I know. That's what they wanted everyone to think, I'd said. But you own a multi-million-dollar company. You have 40 employees. You're successful. More successful than I am. Than Emily's parents are. And they never told anyone? Jason had said, disbelief in his voice. They never asked. They assumed. I let them, I'd explained. Why? Jason had questioned. Because I wanted to see how long they'd dismiss me without ever actually finding out the truth. Turns out, years. They've dismissed me for years without ever once asking how my business was actually doing, I'd stated. Jason had sat back. Emily's going to lose her mind when she finds out. Are you going to tell her? I'd asked. I have to. Daniel, they uninvited you from Thanksgiving because they thought you'd bring down the mood. Because they thought you were poor and struggling. Meanwhile, you're about to be my boss. This is insane, Jason had said. What are you going to do about the job? I'd questioned. I don't know. Is this going to be weird? Me working for you? Jason had asked. Not if you earned the position. Did you? I'd challenged. I think so. I went through the full process. Multiple interviews. I have the experience, the qualifications, Jason had defended. Then you earned it. I don't get involved in hiring. My HR director handles that. If she chose you, you were the best candidate, I'd assured him. This is going to blow up Thanksgiving, Jason had predicted. There is no Thanksgiving for me. I'm not invited, remember? I'd reminded him. Jason had looked at me. You should come. You should absolutely come. And when they ask what you've been up to, you should tell them the truth. They don't want me there, I'd pointed out. They don't want the version of you they invented. They don't know the real you. It's time they did, Jason had argued. I'd thought about it. Call Emily. Tell her everything. Let her decide if she wants me there. Jason had called Emily right there, put her on speaker. Hey, honey, I'm with Daniel. I need to tell you something. About his job. About my new job, Jason had begun. He'd explained everything. I'd heard Emily's shock through the phone. Daniel owns Carter Custom Woodworks? The company you're starting at Monday? The one with the huge showroom in South Park? Emily had said, stunned. Yes, and he's been successful for years. We just didn't know because your parents never asked, Jason had confirmed. Oh my God, Mom and Dad think he's broke. They uninvited him because they didn't want him to feel bad about Jason's success. But Daniel's more successful than any of us, Emily had realized. Exactly, Jason had agreed. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I should have questioned them. I should have asked you myself how things were going instead of believing what they said, Emily had apologized. It's fine, Emily, I'd replied. No, it's not fine. Come to Thanksgiving, please. Mom and Dad need to know the truth, Emily had insisted. They told me not to come, I'd reminded her. I'm telling you to come. It's at my house this year. You're invited. Be there at 3 p.m. Thursday, Emily had stated firmly. Thanksgiving Day. I'd driven to Emily and Jason's house in Ballantyne. Nice neighborhood, good-sized house. I'd pulled up in my truck. Work truck with my company logo on the side. Carter Custom Woodworks. Fine furniture and cabinetry. My parents' Mercedes was already in the driveway. I'd walked up to the door, rang the bell. Emily had answered. I'm glad you came. We'll see if you still think that in an hour, I'd replied. I'd walked into the living room. My parents had been sitting on the couch. They'd looked up, seen me, frozen. Daniel? What are you doing here? My mom had asked. Emily invited me, I'd stated simply. But we told Emily to tell you, my dad had started, that I wasn't wanted because I'd bring down the mood. Yeah, she told me. I came anyway, I'd interrupted. This is inappropriate. We planned a nice dinner, my mom had begun. Mom, Dad, stop, Emily had cut in. You need to hear something. About Daniel. About his job. We know about his job. He does carpentry, my dad had dismissed. He owns a company, Carter Custom Woodworks. Maybe you've heard of it? Emily had revealed. My parents had looked confused. That big furniture company in South Park? That's the one. Daniel owns it. He's the CEO. Has been for 6 years, Jason had confirmed. That's not possible. Daniel dropped out of college. He does odd jobs, my mom had protested. No, Mom. You assumed he does odd jobs. You never asked. His company does $8.5 million in revenue. He has 40 employees. He's been successful this whole time. You just never bothered to find out, Emily had stated. My dad had turned to me. Is this true? Yes, I started Carter Custom Woodworks in 2018. Built it from nothing. We do custom furniture and cabinetry for high-end residential and commercial clients. I make about $600,000 a year personally, I had explained calmly. My mom had gone pale. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. Every time I saw you, you'd make some dismissive comment about the furniture thing or honest work, with pity in your voice. I stopped trying to correct you, I'd said. But we thought you were struggling, my dad had stammered. I know, and instead of checking in, instead of asking how I was doing, instead of offering to visit my business or see my work, you just assumed I was failing, and you treated me accordingly, I'd pointed out. We were trying to spare your feelings, my mom had tried. By uninviting me to Thanksgiving? Because my failure would bring down your celebration of Jason's success? I'd challenged. Jason had stepped in. I'm the new project manager at Carter Custom Woodworks. I start Monday. Daniel's going to be my boss. The job you all celebrated? I got it at his company. The company you thought was beneath him. The room had gone silent. My dad had stood up. Daniel, we made a mistake. A huge mistake. We're sorry. Are you? Or are you embarrassed? I'd asked. Both. We're both, my dad had admitted. For years, you've introduced me to your friends as the son who does carpentry. Said it with pity. Compared me to Emily constantly. Made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And the whole time, I was building something bigger than anything you'd accomplished. But you never cared to know, I'd stated. We were wrong. Can you forgive us? My mom had asked, tears forming. I don't know. You didn't reject me because I was poor. You rejected me because I didn't follow your script. Because I chose a path you didn't respect. Money doesn't change that. Even now, knowing I'm successful, you still wish I'd done it your way, I'd observed. The dinner had been tense, awkward. My parents had tried to make conversation, asked about my business. I'd answered briefly, politely, but distantly. After dinner, my dad had pulled me aside. What can I do to make this right? My dad had asked. Respect my choices, not just now that you know they worked out, but always. Respect that I knew what I was doing even when it didn't look like what you expected, I'd told him. We can do that, my dad had promised. We'll see, I'd replied. It's been 6 months. My relationship with my parents is slowly improving. They visited my showroom, met my team, seen my work, started to understand what I built. But something's changed. I don't need their approval anymore. I spent years building success without it, and that independence is something they can't take away. Here's what I learned. Some people will never value you until they see you through someone else's eyes. My parents dismissed me for years, but the moment someone else, Jason, their son-in-law, validated my success, suddenly I mattered. That's not love, that's borrowed credibility. I also learned that assumptions are lazy and dangerous. My parents assumed I was struggling because I didn't follow their path. They never asked, never verified, never showed genuine interest. They created a story about my life and believed it without checking if it was true. Most importantly, success built in silence is the most satisfying kind. I didn't need to prove anything to my family. I built my company for me, and when the truth finally came out, it wasn't because I bragged, it was because my work spoke for itself. That's real success. Some families celebrate your journey, others only celebrate your destination, and only if it looks like the one they mapped out for you. Know which family you have before you spend your life seeking their approval. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and tell me which country you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss these powerful stories about assumptions, respect, validation, and understanding that your worth isn't determined by whether people recognize it. It exists whether they see it or not. New story every single day that will make you think, feel, and connect. See you in the next one. Take care.